Well, welcome back to the meat shed out here on the Primal Meat Shed. It is a beautiful day to butcher some meat. Okay, so this past weekend, I finally put down the pig that we had been raising. Her name was Purdy. She was a Mangalica Old Spot mix. So she had like a good bit of fat and meat. Like it was a good mixture. The way I did it, basically because this is the only way I really could, is I skinned her and then quartered her up in a sense, and then had to basically stash her in refrigerators over the course of the weekend. And then now today it is time to actually cut the meat up, get our different cuts and stuff going. Now the things that we're going to be using today are knives. For packaging, after we cut everything up, I'm going to be using my two sealers from Avid Armor. The first one is the Maxima 2. The second one is my most favorite chamber sealer. It is the USV20 by Avid Armor as well. The final thing that we will be using to process is our reference guide. Okay, so I am not a professional, but I have butchered meat before, but this book right here definitely does a great job at explaining and showing how the different cuts, how to cut the different things, and actually goes into process, putting the pig down, skinning it, scalding it, all that stuff. So that's the things that I will be using today. So let's get to it. And then we're going to cook something. Not sure what we're going to cook just yet. Stay to the end of the video and you'll find out. Now the first pieces we have here are the tenderloin, which is very deceiving because you think of a loin being in the middle of the legs. To me, processing deer call it the back strap, but it's that long, delicious meat along the back of the spine. This is where you're gonna get pork chops from. This is actually the tenderloin from the inside of the leg that I will trim up, and you slow cook it, and it's delicious stuff. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna trim them, and then I will cut pork chops out of them, and then I might keep one longer, and that way I can slow cook it on the grill as well. And all the fat that I get off of this pig, off the meat, any fat that I trim off, I'm going to be saving. I'm going to render it down for lard. Pretty much start the cuts, and you can pull it off, trim it up. Now, of course, this isn't a how-to video because, like I said, I'm using a reference. This is just how I do it. This is my first time actually butchering my own pig. I have purchased long tenderloins from places like Costco and cut my own pork chops out of it before. Boneless pork chops, of course, because again, how I had to butcher the pig was I had to hang her up and skin her and quarter her all up. I didn't have a way of hanging a whole carcass where I could then use a saw to keep the backbone in, so I could then have bone-in pork chops. One day I will do that, but right now I don't have the means, so this is how I do it. And don't be afraid to just be able to do stuff the way you're able to do it. It doesn't always have to be how other people do it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how I cut my pork chops. These aren't going to be the thickest pork chops, but they're still going to be good. It doesn't have to be fancy, as long as you enjoy it. So now that I've got that first one trimmed up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to square it up. So I'm going to cut this one in half actually, because this I'm going to use on the grill. I'm going to slow cook this, so I'll square it up. Now the reason I square it up is because if you have the tiny pointy end like this, you have that tiny pointy end, when you're grilling it, this is going to get a little bit more done quicker, and a lot of people will square up the ends. That way you have a nice even cook on it. Now I'm got the large piece I'm going to square up as well. The reason I'm going to do that is so I can get some good even pork chops. So any pieces I cut off, this is going to be grind. I'm going to grind it, have ground pork. This is a piece off the neck. This piece sitting here is a piece of the neck that I wanted to save and trim up. When I cut her, I did it all along the jawline, so she still had a decent neck that I could cut and get some meat off of for more ground. So you can see here, that's essentially what my pork chops will look like. Not going to be the biggest, but they're going to be delicious. Here's probably a better seat of it. There you go. So let's cut some pork chops. Real simple. You cut them as thin or thick that you want. What I'm going to do is I'm probably going to cut them thicker because they are so skinny. So about like that. You know, it's pretty decent little pork chop right there. Now the way I raised her, so you may be thinking, why is it not a bigger pork chop like you see in the store and stuff like that? So she was raised outside by herself. I only had her. She was our one pig. She was in a pen, but I fed her, non-GMO food, grower food, all of our scraps that we eat and stuff like that. And I let her grow out for about 1.5 years. And she weighed about 350 to 375, and which was a good weight. Now, the fact of what kind of pig she was is why this isn't as large. And like I said earlier, she was a Mangalica Old Spot mix. So the Mangalicas have a good amount of fat on them, and the Old Spots basically are more of a heftier meat pig. And so when my friends over at Roots and Refuge, Justin Jeremiah, gave her to me, or when they bred those pigs, they were looking to see what kind of meat they can get from. So this was like this was one of their test pigs. They have some more, and they rotationally move them around in the woods. So theirs will probably be a little bit bigger than mine. But again, I did what I could, and this is what we got from her. And I'm not upset about it. So this is just the cuts that we just did. Where we have the pork chops. This one is packaged differently because we're going to save these for tonight. I've got my inner tenderloins, my two, back loins, everything, and all ends up being almost 9.5 pounds. So, though it looks small, it is mighty. 9.5 pounds is it makes me happy. Of course, trimmed off some of the fat and stuff like that. Now, let me show you just how small and mighty this thing is. Just like that, packaged, sealed, and delivered. Now, wasn't that just exciting? That's one of my favorite tools right there. I deer, everything. Fish, deer. I use that way more than I use this one. The reason I'm going to use the actual vacuum sealer is because I have ribs. And I'm going to need a long bag. And that long bag and long ribs are going to fit in my little USB chamber sealer. And that is the beauty of that little vacuum sealer. I've still got my good ribs right here that I'm going to cook tonight, along with some pork chops. So stick around and let's see what it tastes like. Alright, we're on the porch. Meat's done. Alright. We've got the ribs cooking now. Okay, they've been on there for 3 hours now at 275. Just took them off, wrapped them in butcher paper, bumped the temperature up to 365. How I prepared them: I used Dijon mustard as my base, and then I used recteq seasoning. It's called honey rib rub. Absolutely amazing. It's delicious stuff. That's it. So they're on there. Now I'm about to throw our pork chops on there. How I prepared them is using Kinder's Buttery Steakhouse and also some Pluck Seasoning. Pluck is a company that uses organ meats in their blends, so you get stuff like heart, spleen, kidneys, things like that. Makes it easier for like your family members to get those things and the nutrients from them without actually having to eat them. So there's a link in the description. You get 20% off if you use WBH20. Try them out. It's delicious. So let's go get the pork chops, throw them on the grill, and get this whole dinner thing go. Alright, always let your meat rest, okay? Ribs have rested, pork chops are still rolling. Look at that. Ooh, that's juicy. It's a little hot. I'm pleased. Very pleased. Now you can see the bone. You definitely shrank up a good bit. You can also tell that it was just a little bit tougher than I would like, and the reason is because I cooked it faster. You know, I didn't have the time to do a real low and slow, 6-hour cook, pretty much, the 3-2-1 method. But it has an amazing flavor, very juicy, very delicious. I'm very pleased with it. Got a pork chop done. I cooked my pork chops to about 155. So let's see. I expected nothing less. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's nothing better than raising your own meat. It's so great. Appreciate you hanging out.